Okay, I want to welcome you all to the August 24th Planning Commission meeting. And so to start things off, could you all join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll do a roll call at this time.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner DiMattei.
Here.
Commissioner Rontine.
Here.
Commissioner Watts.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'd like to welcome again everybody to today's Planning Commission meeting, which is open to virtual and in-person participation and may be observed online through the Placer County website. If you would like to make a public comment, please fill out the speaker's slip, which is located on the table near the entrance, for any item that you want to speak on, and place it in the basket or hand it to the clerk. For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand with the hand icon at the bottom of the page. If you are calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand. Please be prepared to speak at the time I open the public comment for the specific item you would like to address, which may include public comment for matters not included on the agenda, a consent item, or a timed item. Each commenter will be entitled to 3 minutes of comment time. Thank you for your patience as we work to ensure that each citizen who wishes to comment has an opportunity to do so. Please be advised that today's hearing is being recorded. At this time, I'd like to invite the Planning Director to give a report.
Good morning, Chair Johnson, Planning Commission members, Chris Pahuli, Planning Director. I do have a fair number of updates for you this morning. The first, wanted to note for members of the public that are here today, that are here for item 3, the Hidden Falls use permit modification. Wanted to let everyone know that there was a discrepancy between the agenda, the published agenda, and the legal notice that went out. The legal notice indicated that the hearing would be at 11:30 a.m. rather than 10:30, which is on the published agenda. And so for those that are interested in being here for that hearing, we will start at 11:30. Depending on the first 2 items on the agenda, there may need to be a break as we wait for 11:30 so that we can start that hearing. Also wanted to note for the commission that the September 14th meeting will be canceled. We do not have items for the September 14th meeting. I do want to let you know, however, that based on a review of our advanced agenda, that would suggest that we will not be canceling any of the other meetings through the end of the year. We have a number of items that are queuing up for the subsequent meetings. I also wanted to let you know that there is the potential for another Tahoe meeting before the end of the year. We're looking at the November or December dates. Obviously, at that late date, there's some weather considerations that we'll have to make, but we do have a couple of items that may necessitate another Tahoe meeting. So therefore, given the number of items that we're going to be having in the meetings, if you can please keep the calendar updated and also let myself and Andrea know if there's any any absences that you'll be having. Wanted to note a couple of board items that you have previously considered that are moving on to the board that are of note. On September 26th, the board will be considering the package of amendments related to code enforcement. So that one, again, September 26th. October 17th, the Tahoe Basin Area Plan is scheduled to be heard by the board. On October 31st is when we're targeting the RENA rezone update. I also wanted to let you know that the board last week did approve the EIR contract to assist with the RENA rezone. So again, that item is being targeted for the October 31st date. We'll have a meeting before then. I'll confirm for you, given that I know that the Planning Commission has a considerable amount of interest in that item. I also wanted to mention to you that we are looking at the November 14th board date for the Auburn Airport overlay rezone. Again, one that I know that the Planning Commission was interested in. And so we'll keep you updated, but that's the date that we're targeting. And then lastly, just wanted to mention, as far as our general plan update, we have been in the process, an evaluation committee of reviewing proposals. The next step will be selection and contract negotiations. We're hoping to get to the board in early fall with a contract award, and then that will really get us started with the general plan update in earnest at the beginning of the year. That concludes my update. I'm happy to answer questions that commission members might have.
Apparently no questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the meeting to public comment on any item that's not on today's agenda. And so we'll start with the folks here in the chamber. Does anybody want to speak on something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, is there anybody online? Okay, well, we'll move on then. Okay, it's time for us, we have a consent agenda. And so anybody want to pull something from the consent agenda? I think it's just one item this time. No, it's more than that. Anybody from the commission that wants to pull an item? Anybody in public that wants to pull an item from the consent agenda?
Could you talk in your microphone, please?
Excuse me?
Could you talk in your microphone?
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. Yeah, you're good.
I thought I was picking up my voice, but I appreciate that, thank you. Okay, and so I'm talking about the consent agenda, which basically includes the items that we had at our last meeting. And so if anybody would like to, that's reviewed that, would like to make a comment or pull it from the agenda, you're welcome to do that now. And that includes the planning commissioners. Seeing none, anybody online? Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion from the planning commission.
I would move the consent agenda for today.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. We'll go with the roll call.
I have a first from Commissioner Watts and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei,
Yes.
Commissioner Rontin,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, folks. The next item on the agenda is the Bickford Ranch, and there's a proposed change with the Bickford Ranch in relationship to the timing. And so, if we have, go ahead with it.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, Commissioners. Alex Fish, Planning Services Division. The item before you is a modification to the Bickford Ranch Phase 1 Small Lot Vesting Tentative Map Condition of Approval 95B that is pertaining to the timing of construction of public multi-purpose trail improvements, as well as a modification to a corollary provision in the development agreement that also specifies the timing and delivery of park and recreation improvements. Before we get to that, I want to provide the Commission with just a short background on the Bickford Ranch Phase 1 project and its current status, since several of you are seeing this project for the first time. So with that, let's get started. This is just a simple graphic to orient the Planning Commission on the location of the project here. As you can see, it's located immediately north and east of Sierra College Boulevard and about 1/2 mile south of State Route 193. The plan area is currently split between the communities of Lincoln, Penryn, Newcastle, and Loomis, and staff is currently working through a process with the U.S. Postal Service and the Board of Geographic Names to resolve that issue, with an expectation that Bickford Ranch will be the resulting place name and community designation. Shown here is an aerial exhibit with an illustrative of the specific plan land uses overlaid to provide a representative context for community layout and mix of land uses. The specific plan was originally approved in 2004. Subsequently underwent revisions to the land use plan prior to the commencement of project development, and those revisions were approved by the Board of Supervisors in December 2015. The 1,928-acre plan area includes 780 acres of open space, and the balance of the plan area is primarily comprised of residential land use, including 1,890 total residential units, of which 950 are age-restricted, and shown here in the blue. That's the age-restricted portion of the project. The yellow and brown represent the remainder of units. In purple here, we have public facilities. Obviously, the green is open space land uses. The lighter green, those are public park and recreation improvements. And these kind of salmon color parcels are private recreation center facilities. The Phase 1 project, advance the slide. The Phase 1 project here, shown here in this graphic, consists of 1,049 residential units on 949 acres and was approved by the Planning Commission in May of 2017. It consists of 635 age-restricted units on LDR 19 and 21 and 414 market rate units making up the remaining balance of that Phase 1 project. Phase 1 mass grading began in June of 2021, and major backbone infrastructure improvements for sewer, water, stormwater drainage, and roadways, including Sierra College Boulevard, Bickford Ranch Road, and Upper Ranch Road, commenced construction in late 2021. Those improvements are now nearing completion and will be ready for county acceptance late summer this year into early fall. So the project, again, just an illustrative kind of showing the land uses by neighborhood and product type, the blue again being the age-restricted units, and the varying colors of yellow and orange and brown here being the market rate product. So the project currently has 3 national home builders undertaking development of subdivision improvements. Those include Trilogy by Shea Homes. They have 196 age-restricted units on LDR 19. They are currently under construction with their in-tract improvements. We also have Toll Brothers with 107 market rate units on LDR 3 and LDR 4. They are also under construction on their in-tract subdivision improvements. And then Tri-Point Communities with 65 units on MDR 1, and they are going to be initiating in-tract improvements in the near future. Moving on to the issue that is before the Commission today, the specific plan will be carried out in 3 major development phases, as you can see here, with Phase 1 being the context of this specific request. This subphasing graphic is from the infrastructure phasing plan that was approved concurrent with approval of the Phase 1 small lot tentative map. It illustrates the orderly progression of subphase improvements. As you can see, the Phase 1 project is further broken down into 3 subphases consisting of 1A, 1B, and then the flanks here make up subphase 1C. I won't go through the entire subphasing plan during this presentation, as we are only dealing with one specific issue pertaining to the timing for construction and acceptance of Phase 1A multipurpose trail improvements, but just do want to ensure clarity for the Commission. The entirety of all of the infrastructure improvements are detailed in that infrastructure phasing plan that was included with your packet. All right. Shown here is the master trails plan. In light green is the multi-purpose trail, as well as neighborhood trails shown in purple. There is a Class 1 trail throughout the plan area that is shown in black, and also Class 2 bike lane in red. When completed through all specific plan phases, this multi-purpose trail that winds through the entire plan area completes a 13-mile loop that will meander through the open space. Because the trail will be multi-use and available to the public, a staging area, including parking facilities to support equestrian use, will be constructed on parcel PR2. That is shown here, and also over here is this blue dot. That's the location of that parcel. This parking area will serve as the main point of public access for all public trail users arriving to the site by automobile, and construction of that improvement is triggered to initiate prior to issuance of the 200th building permit. Okay. As I mentioned previously, the approved infrastructure phasing plan details construction of trail subphases matching each of the subphase backbone infrastructure improvements. So again, shown here in orange and black is the Phase 1A portion of the trail. Moving into Phase 1B, shown in green, is the completion of all Phase 1 multi-purpose trail improvements. So that entire trail system portion of the Phase 1 project would be completed at Phase 1B. Okay, which brings us to the issue that is before your commission this morning. As the project implementation, his team is working with the master developer to initiate acceptance of each piece of backbone infrastructure. The group realized there are 3 issues that need to be addressed. Number 1 is the subphase sequencing of trail improvements is not reflected in the project conditions of approval for the small lot map, nor in the development agreement. Number 2, construction of the public serving parking area is not triggered until the issuance of the 200th building permit, which could result in issues with public attempting to park on roadways to access the trail system if the trail was constructed prior to the construction of that parking area. And thirdly, constructing a public use trail at the current stage of the project raises a number of safety issues for trail users and the heavy construction crews that are on site now, because there are several locations where these backbone infrastructure facilities intercept the trail at several locations. So the proposal to modify the small lot map condition of approval 95B and corollary provisions in the development agreement addresses these issues by slightly deferring the improvement and bringing into alignment that improvement with the delivery of other public serving recreation improvements, including, importantly in this case, the public parking, a public use restroom, and a trail kiosk for the multi-purpose trail that will be initiated on parcel PR2 prior to the issuance of the 200th residential building permit. And so this proposal would align those 2 facilities to be coincident with each other. The effect would be to improve public safety by not providing public access and use of the trail concurrent with ongoing major construction that would place the public and construction crews at risk. And it also ensures orderly growth and development that is timed to provide the services when the demand will occur, because that would be at a time when the homes will be, kind of getting underway, right? 200th building permit. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the following items to the Board of Supervisors. Number 1, find the proposed amendment to the amended, corrected, restated development agreement and corresponding modification to the vesting tentative subdivision map conditions of approval is exempt from further environmental review in accordance with California Government Code Section 65457, Public Resources Code 21166, and CEQA Guidelines Sections 15182 and 183. The reason for that is there's no change to the actual physical nature of the improvements, the extent of the improvements. It's just simply timing. That does not result in an environmental effect. Number 2, adopt an ordinance approving the third amendment to the amended, corrected, restated development agreement by and between County of Placer and the property owners listed under number 2. And lastly, approve the proposed modification to the Bickford Ranch Phase 1 vesting tentative subdivision map conditions of approval. I did want to mention that we did receive one public comment this morning from Michael Garabedian. I believe that comment letter was provided to the commission. It goes through a number of issues that, in my opinion, are not really relevant to the issue that's before the commission. It does talk a little bit about the Bickford Ranch in the context of some other issues, but they're not really directly corollary to the delivery of this public improvement. But happy to answer any questions on that if you have them. Otherwise, I did also want to mention that Rob Aragon with Bickford Improvement Company is here today, and I'm sure that he would like to supplement staff's presentation to the commission. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm available to answer any questions should you have any.
Questions?
Not by now.
Questions? I do have one question. Now, what we're approving today just applies to Phase 1?
Correct.
Okay, so Phase 2 and Phase 3 will have subsequent discussions like this, is that correct?
That is correct, and we don't want to get too far ahead in terms of the project team, but it is possible, if I think I understand where you're leading, is that we may take a look at these issues again when we're looking at those subsequent phases to make sure that there are not construction conflicts with the timing for delivery of recreation improvements in those phases, and we'll be evaluating those things when those phases come forward.
Okay. Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Okay, and so we'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rob Aragon on behalf of the Bickford Improvement Company. Just want to thank staff for the detail and bringing this to you. There's been a lot to this issue, and Alex just really laid it out pretty succinctly. To the extent you have any questions, you have any interest in some of the details behind Bickford, I'm happy to try and answer them, but I believe Alex really did a good job in kind of lining that out. I'm here and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, no questions. Thank you. Anybody from the public in the immediate room that would like to comment or has filled out a comment card? Not seeing anybody jump up, so I guess we don't have any from here. Do we have any online? Okay, with that, I guess, Alex, do you have any more to add? Or the applicant?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we'll close the public comment and then bring it back to the commission. And what's the pleasure?
I'm ready to
Okay?
everybody else is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we find the proposed amendment to the amended, corrected, restated development aid agreement and corresponding modification to the vesting tentative subdivision map conditions of approval is exempt from further environmental review in accordance with the Government Code Section 65457, Public Resources Code Section 21166, and CEQA Guidelines Section 15182, and is subject to streamline review under Section 15183.
Okay, and this is a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, just for information.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. Roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner DiMattei and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei,
Yes.
Commissioner Von Teen,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2?
Item 2, I'd also like to recommend approval for the following item to the Board of Supervisors. Do I need to read all of the substantial companies
No, I think for purposes of the motion, just the first part about adopting an ordinance approving the third amendment to the development agreement is sufficient.
Okay. Second, adopt an ordinance approving the third amendment to the amended, corrected, restated development agreement by and between the County of Placer and West Bixford Holdings LLC and the following companies.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner DiMattei and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei,
Yes.
Commissioner Rontine,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 3?
Item 3, I'd like to recommend an approval of the following item to the Board of Supervisors. Number 3, approve the proposed modification to the Bigford Ranch Phase 1 vesting tentative subdivision map, conditions of approval.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second.
I have a first from Commissioner DiMattei and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei,
Yes.
Commissioner Rontine,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, this will be moving on to the Board of Supervisors. Okay, at this time, we're ready to take up a variance proposal in the Granite Bay area. And so, you see staff, go ahead with it.
Good morning, Planning Commission members. I am Bennett Smithhart with the Planning Services Division. The next item today is the HDMA variance and subdivision modification. The project is located at 7560 Sierra Drive in Granite Bay, which is about a mile southeast of the intersection of Auburn, Folsom, and Douglas. If you're driving down Douglas toward the lake and you take a right at the last light, that'll get you down to Sierra Drive where this is located. Here's the parcel at 75607 Drive. It is 0.3 acre parcel and it is lot 76 in the Lake Ridge subdivision. It was originally developed in 1977 and in 2003 they constructed an in-ground pool in the backyard of the site. And you can see this aerial was from when the construction was going on, so you can see it there. This is located within the Granite Bay area, community plan area, and the land use designation is medium density residential, 2 to 4 units per acre, and is zoned residential single family, combining a minimum building site of 10,000 square feet. Here are some photographs of the parcel. This is specifically around the pool. So on the left here, you see the east side property line. The concrete is the pool. Then there's a safety fence on the east side close to the property line. The photograph on the right, this is the rear of the parcel. You can see it overlooks onto Folsom Lake, and at the soil's edge here, you can see that's where the retaining wall is proposed to be constructed. Some additional photographs. This is standing on Lake Shore at the rear of the property. So you can see the neighboring properties and what they look like, and some of the erosion that has occurred since the construction of the pool has occurred. A little background on the Lake Ridge subdivision. It's a 103 unit subdivision that was approved in December of 1955. One unique thing about this subdivision is the front setbacks were recorded on the subdivision map, and for the centrally located parcels, there are 28 centrally located parcels, and there's front and rear setbacks recorded on those. From 1955, the record didn't show why they required these 28 centrally located parcels to have both front and rear 25-foot recorded setbacks on the map. But it's likely for its proximity to Folsom Lake and to ensure views aren't impacted, or the terracing of the project didn't impact views from Folsom Lake. We did some research within the Lake Ridge subdivision, and since its approval in 1955, approximately 20 parcels have requested either a variance or a subdivision modification. Of the 28 centrally located parcels, 8 of those have requested a variance or subdivision modification to the setback. So this is the proposal here. As you can see, the red is where they're requesting to put the retaining wall. The rear of the property has as I mentioned, the 25-foot structural setback recorded on the subdivision map. The side setback does not have a recorded structural setback, and that goes back to the zone district, the residential single-family building site of 10,000 square feet, and that's 7.5 feet for a 2-story structure, 7.5 feet from the side property line. So they're wanting to put a 4 to 8 foot tall retaining wall. The southeast corner is the highest point, and that'll be 8 feet. And both of the legs go down to 4 feet. So the average height is 6 feet of the retaining wall. And under code, a total of 8 feet is allowed. So if you have a retaining wall with a fence on top, so with the 8-foot retaining wall and a 5-foot, they're proposing a wrought iron fence. It exceeds the height standards, so they're requesting the subdivision modification to push the setback so they can have the up to 8 foot tall retaining wall with the wrought iron fence. So they would need a variance to the side setback and a subdivision modification for the rear. So the variance is to reduce the east side back to 2 feet, where 7.5 feet is normally required. And in order to make findings on a variance, you will need to determine if there's special circumstances applied to a property, including size, shape, topography, location, or surrounding. Staff has determined that the topography and the constraints that does have special circumstances, including the topography and the constraints from the location of the existing pool. Next is the subdivision modification, changing from 25 feet to 20 feet. The Subdivision Map Act allows for a subdivision modification under corrections and amendments of map, changes in circumstances that make any or all the conditions of the map no longer appropriate or necessary. And it's allowed if it does not impose any additional burden on the present fee owners of real property, or does not alter any right, title, or interest in the real property reflected on the recording map. Staff has determined there have been change in circumstances, including erosion from the rains we had last winter. We had a lot of rain, and it caused some erosion around the pool, and they were wanting the retaining wall to secure the pool and the soil around it. So going into the Granite Bay Community Plan. So the Granite Bay Community Plan community design element doesn't have any specific requirements for retaining walls, but it does encourage high quality design and the use of natural materials for general development. And this retaining wall will be painted a neutral color and proposes plantings on the south side to screen the 8-foot wall from the neighboring properties. And it proposes a 5-foot wrought iron fence, and this will not block any views of Folsom Lake because it's transparent. The photograph is the property directly to the west. They have a retaining wall with a wrought iron fence, so they're proposing just to match that. And as you can see the house through the wrought iron fence, so it won't block any views. It went to the August 4th Granite Bay MAC as an action item. And discussion with the MAC members included whether the property owner communicated with his neighbors about this, on-site access for the fire department, ability for firefighters to get back there, was the retaining wall engineered, and if the subdivision modification applies to the entire subdivision. The Granite Bay MAC recommended the Planning Commission approve the project. It was 4-0 with 3 absent. Staff has determined the project is categorically exempt for environmental review, class 3, new construction of small structures, because the proposed wall is the smallest accessory structure. So therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to provisions of Section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act and Section 183650 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance. And 2, approve the variance and final map modification for the HDMA project subject to the conditions of approval in attachment D and findings in the staff report. We did receive one letter from the neighbor to the east. Then on Tuesday, we received an additional letter from that neighbor who further reviewed the project and is in support of it. Available for any questions.
The only question I have, is there some, there's a gap between the completion of the pool and the request now? And is the requirement or the interest in having a retaining wall some, based on an engineering opinion or some other technical means, or is it just a preference by the landowner?
The property owner did consult an engineer about this, and that was, from my conversations with him, this was the least intrusive, least expensive. The bigger the wall, the more it costs. So the least intrusive way to shore up the soil around the pool.
Can you go back to the picture that showed from Lakeshore Boulevard side up to the backyard? Where you said there was some erosion all the way down? That
Yes.
one there? So the fencing facing the northeast piece, obviously the retaining wall is gonna go to the street, or it's gonna go up higher, right? You're gonna still have that 20-foot. So if, I don't have a pointer, but if you have erosion from the street going up, and if that wall is not gonna help prevent the rest of that from sliding after the wall's put in, what's gonna be done to prevent what looks like it's sliding already to the road from the wall to the road?
Yes, so the retaining wall will be specifically around the pool to secure that, but the remaining, they have picked out some plants that the roots will go into the soil and secure it. So they're planning on planting that whole area, so no additional, the bottom area, so no additional erosion will occur.
It looks like the neighbor has a retaining wall that goes down to Lakeshore Boulevard. Would that be better? Because I've seen plants get eroded after heavy rainstorms as well. So just my concern is to have them put all this money into this wall and something on the south side of it fails as well. I don't know. It looks to me like the neighbors, maybe it should match it just for their own benefit. Maybe, I know it's probably gonna cost more money, but it looks to me that there could be still erosion after you start disturbing the earth. And
I understand your question. So they are not currently proposing to do that, but they will have to submit a grading permit to engineering and surveying. And so with a grading permit review, they take a look of, drainage and erosion and things like that. So if there's anything that needs to be shored up, that will be required with the grading permit process.
okay, I just hate to see them spend money and then all of a sudden that is washed away as well, so.
And also my colleague from engineering surveying is here if you have any grading permit specific questions.
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right.
Just a couple of questions in a disclosure. Bennett and I have corresponded on this, and I also drove out to the site and looked at it as well. So it's still unclear to me, Bennett, and one of my colleagues asked the same question. It was also asked or addressed at the MAC as well. And you say that the engineers decided that this was the best approach, essentially, to putting in this retaining wall. The question is a retaining wall required to support the pool from an engineering perspective? I don't think we necessarily are concerned about, hey, this is a great retaining wall from an engineering perspective. The question is this required to support this pool? Do we have an engineering perspective on that?
I'll refer to Eric Griffin in surveying and engineering.
So, Eric Griffin with ESD. When the building permit came in for review, Michelle Lewis reviewed it and basically stated that the retaining wall at that time was not required for the construction of the pool.
Okay, so there was a building permit for the pool. This was not a by right thing. We approved a building permit for the pool.
Correct.
When we
Which-
did that, we did not indicate that they needed a retaining wall. Have the circumstances changed because of the erosion associated with what was really pretty unprecedented storm last year?
I don't think a retaining wall would be required. I think it will reduce the potential of the erosion and washing away the footing of the pool. So it will help essentially solidify how the pool sits now and prevent further issues.
Okay. So we received 2 letters, Bennett, but to my knowledge, the commission has not received those letters. These are public comment letters. Do you know why that is? Or did you guys get them?
one
There
from-
is a public comment letter in the report package. It is.
I believe it's attachment G is
Oh,
the letter.
okay, my apologies then. I just
However,
didn't see it.
I will note that was the initial letter. As Bennett mentioned, there was correspondence that said that that same neighbor is now in support, but I do not believe that was provided
Distributed.
to the.
Okay, so
to the
that's the
commission.
only, that's the only letter we're talking about that we might have
Correct.
missed was a letter that came back that said that we support this now.
Yes, correct.
All right,
I have another question for engineering. Once they go disturb the earth and put the foundation in for this retaining wall, what's it gonna do below the retaining wall? It looks like that's a pretty good slope, probably 40%, 35%. Is that gonna move on to something else, eroding beyond the wall like it has on the pool?
So we will look at erosion control measures when we review the retaining wall, and we can put measures in that will protect the opposite side footing, such as vegetation or the hydro seeding or like a cocoa mesh or something like that.
What makes vegetation better than just putting the retaining wall like the neighbor has all the way to the road? So there doesn't have to come back for future problems or for the landowner now?
I don't know if there's a better solution. I think it's just a choice that they wanted to put it off the road, but it could be very viable at the road as well, because there's potential for erosion.
My view is I'm looking out for what this guy's gonna put into a wall, and now if the pool failed, and now this wall is no different than the pool, it's gonna hold up probably the same amount of pressure and weight, that now you're just pushing the problem down the road or down the hill.
I see what you're saying.
So just my thoughts.
if I can just make a quick comment, I'll be honest with you, it is, when I drove by it, it is steeper than it even appears in that right picture to me. The left picture probably does a bit of a better job. It's surprisingly steep. So Anthony, you're referring to the rocks that are going down to the road? Is that as a retaining wall? Is that what you're referring
Correct.
to?
Was that put there as part of the retaining wall for the neighbors so they can control the erosion from the downslope of their retaining wall that they put in? And if so, then why not just extend it down and, it's cheaper to do it today than to go move dirt and do it tomorrow. My thoughts, if it was my house, that was what I would do to it. Just, I'd want to be safer on installing a wall and not having that erode because it looks like it already affected with the pool. Probably not as much weight, but still it looks like with the weather and, just topography, it could happen again.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. That does appear to be their way of preventing the erosion. And we could suggest that to the applicant as they move forward with their grading permit.
Okay, thank you.
So, quickly, you said you could suggest that. So do you have the authority, first of all, I'm surprised that we can put erosion measures to the road like that. Private citizen could do that. Seems to me that that would be inside of an easement or something like that. Even though it seems like it's probably a pretty good idea. Can you comment on that?
I can't comment to if they did that within the easement or not. I haven't looked at what that easement is, but we would require them to put their erosion control measures outside of the easement for the applicant at hand.
So does the county have the authority to do what Mr. DiMattei is talking about?
To ask them to put rock
No,
for
not to ask, to direct.
we would direct them to do erosion control measures. I can't specifically say you have to put rock to match the neighbor, but it would be some sort of an erosion control measure such as hydro seeding, cocoa mesh, hay, something like that.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay.
Not to prolong the conversation, do you know when that home was constructed?
Yes, it was constructed in 1977.
77 and,
Then it was remodeled, I believe, around 2018
okay, and
when
then
the
pool is
current property owners
2021.
built it. So a couple of years after they purchased the house and started remodeling it, they chose to put in a pool.
And do we have, well, I'm not gonna go there. Thank you very much.
Mr. I guess I missed on that a little bit. I thought I heard that the pool was constructed in 2003.
2000, the permit was approved in 2001, and they started construction on it after it was approved, summer 2001. Then the construction was completed, I think it was May or June 2022.
Of 2022.
Yes.
And so they remodeled their house, but the pool was already present then.
No pool. They purchased the house, I think 2017, 18, and then they started updating it. It was just a house, driveway with a backyard. So a couple of years after purchasing it, they decided they wanted a pool, so they got a building permit and built a pool in their backyard.
I think the clarification, 2021, not 2001. Bennett mentioned 2001, but 2021 is when the
20,
pool was
yes.
constructed.
Yeah, I'm
didn't
trying
have
to put the timing together
They
here.
didn't have the permit for 20 years.
Huh?
They didn't have the permit for 20 years.
No, no, I was under the impression that it was constructed by 2002 or 2003, but it was
Lasted since
2022. I guess.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right.
2000.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any more questions?
Slipping.
Okay, thank you, Bennett. And then the applicant, would you like to say anything?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. I believe I can address all the questions that were asked, so I think I was looking at you, Mr. Mateo. I think I have the answer for you. So, when it comes to this, we would like to do a like wall across the front of it. We were looking at doing something to the, I think it's like having gunite down there and putting the stone in there for additional erosion. The neighbors we spoke with, in general, they like the vegetation in a more natural look. So what we're proposing, which we'll be submitting to planning when we do it, is an anchored geotext material on the bottom with subsequent anchors coming down the hill for erosion, as well as allowing the fibrous root plants to get in there and hold the soil to prevent erosion. The stones there to the left, as well as stones on our property, during the heavy rains and erosion, that is a very steep. Well, you can't really walk up it at all. It's about a 1-to-1 drop on there. When the stones do erode, they do come down, and they have jumped Lakeshore Drive and ended up in the neighbor's property to the south. So this is, while it's allows us to get more use of our property and retain our investment for the pool, it also prevents some of the potential injuries along Lakeshore Drive. We've picked up stones over Lakeshore Drive. People do all the time because they roll down the hill. So we're not opposed to, obviously, either way as far as the erosion control. My wife and I have been working on this for a couple of years now with the county to find out what the most acceptable way to present this and ultimately get it to this point. So if the county would prefer that we do the stone with reinforced gunite mortar or whatever it is to maintain erosion control, I'm perfectly fine with that. I believe the cost would be negligible to do the stones or the geotext material, which actually is a pretty extensive amount of work, anchoring it and then dragging it down and having a professional landscaper out there, and then the required watering that's going to be required to maintain it over the subsequent years until the root system maintains its footing in there. So by all means, we would be perfectly happy. Our original thing was we would love to build the retaining wall. If you look at the 28 properties that are enclosed on Sierra Drive and Lakeshore, there's only 4 properties total in that encompassing 28 homes that don't have either a wall, a fence, or a combination of a wall and a retaining wall within the easement. Some of them are as low as 11 feet from the road. So we're not trying to seek anything that our neighbors don't have. I would love to be able to request the wall being built within about 10 feet of there. That would require, from the engineering standpoint, over a 20-foot high wall to run parallel to Lakeshore Drive. You know, it's not only a pretty hefty engineering effort, but it's also a pretty financially large endeavor to do that, and we would like to avoid it if possible. So what we did is we took the soil composition into account. We moved the wall as close as we could to the pool. 8 foot. When we say it's going to be 8 foot, it's really the bush, or the tree that's in the left photo as this far right photo. That tree right there will cover the majority of the 8 foot section. There's a draw that runs up between the two properties, you know, with parallel spurs on there. It's a very steep draw. It's a very confining particular area. The majority of the wall will run 4 feet across. It just has that one steep corner over there that's got to be 8 foot deep, and it will be hidden or mainly concealed behind that white bush and those agave-looking kind of trees that are over there. The one portion of the property that has not eroded during the storms was that agave tree. That root system is extremely durable. We're going to continue to remain that there and actually allow it to go up into the larger portion of the retaining wall. So hopefully that addresses the erosion part. We are actually open to whatever the county would prefer to have us do: rock, mortar, gunite, you know, to maintain the back, or do a more natural appearance. The neighbors like the flowers, so we were looking at trying to do flowers that maintain the proper footing. So as far as the engineering wall, that is correct. The wall itself is not necessary to maintain structural integrity of the pool at this point in time. Obviously, as the years go on, the erosion will continue to peak up. If you've noticed on the first photo with the left-hand side of the pool, was flush, and that's all eroded over this last year. So what the retaining wall will allow us to do is to maintain the soil, keeping it inside of the retaining wall itself, and it also maintain the hydroscopic pressure on the backside to keep that dirt up against the wall, to keep the under erosion. The pool itself on the easterly side, which is the corner of the pool you're looking at now, that's actually dug down almost 9 feet deep. That's just shallow into kind of the Cabo Shelf, 14, 15-inch deep portion of the water. That's actually got a footer down there that's almost 9 feet deep, and solid concrete across. We had to do that because of the slope of the terrain once they got into it, and I believe we had to do a permit, a modification during the construction of the pool once we got into the soil content of the pool. So we are concerned with continuous erosion over time, as we're facing the storms down in Southern California with Hillary and stuff. You know, if something was come up like that during the time of this construction, it would present a problem with this, and we're trying to avoid that in the future. Is our main thing of getting this. Mr. Watts, so we purchased a home in 2016. We remodeled it in 2018, and we continue to remodel it to this day. And this will be one of hopefully the last major investments that we make into the home. Once the wall is hopefully approved by you gentlemen, we can continue the landscaping and work our way out of the property and then finish the front of the house, and then it will be completely done. Mr. Johnson, the pool was built in 2021. So in closing, it's not our intent to build some monstrous, you know, obstructive retaining wall there. Financially, we prefer to have no wall there and just to put the stone for erosion. Just the storm the last couple of years has really necessitated our approach to retain the wall. As you know, the pool was a pretty significant investment. You know, the house itself was a significant investment from my wife and I after we retired from the military in 2017. We moved out here. So we're not trying to take on anything that's not congruent with the rest of the neighborhood. We're just trying to protect our investments today, tomorrow, and put something in there that's aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood and that the neighbors themselves are happy with. And like I said, I think they would be happy with the stones because we'll still intermix some plants with it. But ultimately, you know, if you choose to have a different type of erosion control, by all means, we'll make that happen.
Just a comment. I just compliment you on the view you have and what you've done to the home. It's beautiful. And next time I'm out there, go by Lakeshore on my boat. I'll wave.
Absolutely. We see a lot of people back there, a lot of the construction workers, you know, we'll wave to them in the back. So, yeah, we we find ourselves very fortunate with the view, and as long as they keep water in the lake, we're happy.
Just one more comment. I am kind of familiar with this. I did look at a house there 25 years ago and was concerned about that. And now that you guys have to deal with it, I feel sorry for you. But I think going forward, even Supervisor Watts had mentioned to me that maybe there was a combination of, you know, keeping the agave, but then putting in the concrete or the gunite on the side of the wall and just kind of making a combination of both, probably for your own protection. So you don't have to come back to this and probably deal with it again. And
Yes, sir.
materials will obviously be cheaper today than they will tomorrow. That would be my suggestion, kind of what he said. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You still get some shrubbery for your neighbors that want that, but you also get your protection of all of your property that you invested into as well.
Yes, sir. So did you say you drove out there the property as well? Is that where you-
I haven't driven out there lately. I drove out, I've been there before. I'm very familiar with the property. Actually, my realtor, that was her family's home 3 doors down for their vacation home in Sacramento, which I was kind of shocked to hear. But anyways,
Oh, the one all the way down to the end of Sierra down there?
I can't remember the exact
Yeah.
location. But anyways, I'm familiar with it. And I would think for your best interest that you kind of match what your neighbor's done for your investment, and along with my colleague that kind of suggested that, you know, you keep some of the shrubbery, but kind of do both for yourself.
So we actually assisted the neighbors, they're an elderly couple, stack some of those stones in that particular kind of culvert area. One of the challenges that we will run into with our property is the grade of the property itself. That's why it will have to be, you know, gunite and mortared or something underneath of it. Because you can't put a stone on the top of that hill right now.
Right.
And it will run and it will end up in our neighbors to the south yard. So, and terracing the ground itself is too unstable to really create a terrace. Otherwise, if we did that, we would end up beyond the pool, almost back up to our neighborhood. But sir, we will take that, you know, strong consideration. It would be my personal desire. I'm not a big vegetation fan, to where it could just all be concrete, but we understand aesthetically, we will shoot for something to that to protect our investment.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next ask is for engineering is could it be stepped so it kind of looked better or easier to maintain, and but if it's that steep, then probably not.
We would be okay with stepping it.
Okay.
I mean, if the calculations and everything plan out, stepping it is perfectly fine.
We've had multiple engineers out there, sir. It's just, stepping it would end up pushing it all the way. Once you step it, it pushes it up against the pool, and then it doesn't have the distance, the last wall doesn't have the distance to maintain, the structural integrity from the pool, to the wall, because we're trying not to go all the way up to the surface of the pool.
Right.
To maintain the, view for not only us, but the neighbor as well. So we're trying to get it at the very bottom of the pool, right before it gets to the footing of the pool. So, I don't want to say it's not possible. It would be another very heavy financial endeavor to do
Not
steeping.
just, no, I don't want to have to, because you spend more money than you
And
have to.
we sincerely appreciate that, so.
No, I'm looking out for your future, because, you know, I've had to deal with problems like this, but anyways, that's just my suggestion, so.
Commissioners, if I might just add, as you're speaking with the applicant and as you have mentioned, comments around the area from the wall to the street to Lake Shore, if there is a desire, I will point you to attachment D, which is the conditions of approval. If there's thoughts about adding language to the conditions, condition 3 would be the appropriate condition to modify, perhaps at the end of the first sentence, where it says, prior to start of construction of the retaining wall and within 30 days of the variance approval, applicant shall apply for a grading permit from the engineering and surveying division, perhaps including some additional language that says that includes adequate erosion control measures for the portion of the property from the retaining wall to Lake Shore Drive. Now, should the commission want to add any more specific language than that, then perhaps you might want to have some conversation with the applicant about their thoughts before you make modifications to that condition.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I do like
Mr.
that.
Mateo, your concerns are my primary concerns as well, just from a financial aspect, is the wall is not cheap. So we are seriously considering every option we could, and if you would choose to add those, we would be more than happy actually to do that work, because I would prefer to have something to where when the rains do come in and ultimately sheet flows over top of that retaining wall, that it will come down the retaining wall as opposed to start to underwash
Right.
the retaining wall.
Because you can underwash it, right?
Yes, sir.
I guess my suggestion, if they're not opposed to it, is to add that language so they have the option to go from, pavement, or like the neighbors are, straight up to help protect the money that they're investing in their wall. So if there's an option, or that they have the choice to do that, can we do that? Like either put a wall or put vegetation or whatever's,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it adds a little bit more specificity to the condition and provides direction so that when it is reviewed by ESD, there's a little bit more direction as to what the condition says, that they will look at those erosion control measures.
okay.
Okay, any more
I-
questions?
Yeah, just, first of all, one of the best applicant discussions that I've sat through, so very well done, I thought.
Thanks, sir.
Have a very clear understanding of the circumstances and situations, so I thought that was good, and Chris, you might want to hire him. Second question is, where is your property line on this photograph?
If I had to, let's see here if I can grab this. It would be roughly, sir, right through here.
Okay, so my question is this, there's been a lot of discussion about financial aspects and stuff like that. The county has a responsibility here, because this is not his property. And so one of the issues we have in this property that's to the left, it seems to me, is that more than likely, there's a property line that's similar there, and yet someone, probably that property owner, has gone ahead and placed erosion control, which is inadequate or whatever, on in an area where it's the county's responsibility, it seems to me. So my question is, and this is a county staff question, I suppose, my question is, I'll give you a second.
Sorry, we're looking into it really quickly about whether or not the property line goes all the way to Lake Shore and it's just an easement, or whether the property line
Yeah.
actually stops.
Well, I guess my point will be, and we don't necessarily have to decide this even today, but it seems to me that there's a shared responsibility here, and there's probably a shared financial burden as well. So the property owner has a responsibility to his property line, but he does not and should not execute erosion control or something like that on county property or property that is, not his. Or we wind up with a situation where rocks roll onto the road and cause damage. So perhaps another condition of approval on this should be that, or I don't know whether this makes sense or not, but at some point we need to make sure that the county takes its burden of responsibility here as well and relieves the homeowner from that aspect of it, right? So,
Okay, one
I think
question.
that
I
makes
have a
sense.
couple
One of the
questions here.
things, I'm sorry, really quickly, one of the things that I mentioned when I mentioned that potential addition to the condition was the retaining wall to Lake Shore Drive, and given the comments that you made in looking at the exhibit here, perhaps it's to the property line rather than to Lake Shore Drive. And then as the improvement plans are reviewed, obviously we'll need to make some determination about what the county's responsibility is and how to best secure the property.
Yeah, I guess I would have a question on that, because quite frequently, the county does have an easement on either side of a road. And it could be that the property line actually goes down to the road, but the county does have an easement there, which would be somewhat controlling. And so that would be something that, before we start writing more conditions, that we'd have to clarify, right?
Yeah, I think there is an exhibit
Yeah.
that shows the site plan.
There is, sir. And just, so our property itself is 150 feet, running generally north-south. The distance between the edge of Sierra to Lakeshore Drive is about 180 feet, assuming there's a 25-foot easement on, from the center line of both Lakeshore and Sierra. Sierra Drive itself is only about 25 feet wide, to where correction, Sierra Drive is about 35 feet wide. Lakeshore Drive is about 25 feet wide. So there's about a 10, 15-foot variance on one way or the other, depending on how you would come out and actually survey it to where our property goes. Based off Sierra Drive being a more, I guess, more readily available to pull from the center line from there without the gentle slope that we have in the back, is we believe that the property itself is, that line does run about here. So that puts it about 15 and a half feet from the center line of Lakeshore is about where our property line would start.
And if I can ask you to advance it to slide 22. Next one, 22.
Oh, yeah, 22,
Yeah.
sorry, sir.
So that this exhibit shows, and it's in the report package as well, but the dotted line there on the south side shows the property line, and shows that it does not go all the way to Lakeshore Drive.
It does say easement, though. It doesn't say property, right?
Property line easement, there's a PL there.
Yeah, it says property line,
This is our property line.
Yeah, an easement could be different than county property.
right?
In our particular case, the documentation we have for purchasing the home, as well as the stuff that's recorded with the county, the property easement R1 with our particular property.
Probably the way they were set in
I don't know if
1955.
we have an answer to that for sure or not, but if we do, then it's fine.
Well, there is a storm drain there too, so I'm sure that's part of the easement off the property line. If you go back to the one photo, you can
Yes, the
see.
storm drain runs right here. It's almost about 5 feet off of the edge of Lakeshore Drive.
If I could suggest, I don't think we need to solve this aspect right now. I mean, I think we can probably move on. I think we've got a plan. If this is approved, we have a plan. And then the county and the homeowner are gonna need to determine where exactly that line is, if there is a line, and what method will be used to properly allow for better drainage and security on that area.
The county does come out occasionally, since we've been in there. And this drainage ditch, along with the culvert there that runs all the way down Lakeshore Drive, they do come out occasionally and have to clean it just, for debris and stuff that falls off the other properties. But in general, I think myself and a lot of the other neighbors get out there and try to maintain it as well, just because of the nature of the slope of the property.
Okay, well, I think whether we have county property or an easement there is something that you can check into later. I do have a question, though, and this may be just clarification. It's just clarification. When you were having a pool builder come in and do some engineering, did they recommend a retaining wall?
Yes. So if you look back at the plans for the pool, there isn't a retaining wall depicted on there. However, it did say it will be submitted subsequently with a different contractor. When we had the pool built, it was kind of like in the middle of the whole COVID time, and Premier Pools is a builder, and they were sitting about 1,500 pools behind. So in order to get our pool built in a timely manner, we opted to go ahead and separate the retaining wall from the pool. Hindsight, we didn't know the storm was going to be as bad as it is in the road, but we opted to get the pool built so we could enjoy the pool and then work through this. So about 21 is about when we started working this process informally through the county, and as trying to get an understanding of this entire process.
Okay, so I guess the point that I would make here is that the retaining wall is really part and parcel of protecting the pool.
Yes, sir.
It's not necessarily just to extend your backyard, it's to
No, it's
protect
not
the pool.
something we just decided to arbitrarily build a retaining wall. I'd rather just put that money somewhere else. But the original retaining wall, proposed retaining wall was on the plan itself, the site plan for the pool.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any more questions for the applicant? All right, well, let me see, let's go to public comment if there's any public comment. And thank you. If there's public comment, we'll invite you back up, or if we need be
Okay.
asking more questions, we will. Thank you, though. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
It appears we don't have any public comment from within here, and so we'll check on the Zoom meter, see if there's any public comment. There's not. And so at this point, I'd ask staff, do you have any more to add to this? We've had a lot of discussion about adding to conditions and that kind of stuff. You might kind of,
I just want to
clarify
note
that
one
for
thing
us.
is condition number of approval number 2 requires the retaining wall and fence to be subject for review and approval by planning staff, and this will occur during the grading permit process. So it will be sent to planning staff when we get plans sit in, and we'll review that landscape, colors, all that for the project, consistent with what is approved today.
okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate, any more things you want to say?
I do not. I can answer any questions if there are any outstanding questions.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads, so we're okay with that. So I'll bring it back to the commission and see what you want to do. If you want to discuss it some more or make a motion, you're sure welcome to do that.
I'm willing to make a motion if there is no discussion following discussion.
The only thing I would like to do is add that,
Yeah.
that language to item number 2. Is it number 2 needs to be added to, correct? That he does have the option to go down and the county will kind of meet him halfway or do what the county has to do on county property and his property to make sure that rocks don't continue to fall across Lake Shore Boulevard.
Yes, with item number 2, the recommendation would be to modify condition of approval 3. I can read that back into the record when we get to that point.
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay.
That's my only recommendation.
Modify condition of approval 3 as discussed.
Yes, I think for purposes of the record, we'll also need to read in the actual language modifying condition of approval 3 when we take that motion.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go for it.
So, I move that we find the project is categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to provisions of section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and section 18.36.050 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, parentheses, class 3, new construction of small structures.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei,
Yes.
Commissioner Rontine,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward.
Yes.
Thank you.
And in anticipation of you making the motion on the second item, perhaps we should read the condition of approval in now. And then when you make your motion, you can just state, subject to the conditions of approval as explained and modified for condition of approval number 3.
Okay.
So at the end of the first sentence of condition of approval 3, it would read, following surveying division that includes adequate erosion control measures for the portion of the property from the retaining wall to the property line.
So with that language, does that give him the option to gunite it? If he chooses to?
It would allow that when he comes into, with the grading permit, to have the conversation with ESD staff and work through the process
Okay.
for the, whether it's gunite or some hybrid approach, it would give him that option.
Okay, so he can have the option to match his neighbor if he chooses to.
Is that correct?
Right. I just want to make sure that's clear for him.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
All right, second motion. I move the planning commission approve the variance and final map modification for the HDMA project, subject to the conditions of approval as modified in item 3,
3, but yes.
condition 3, in attachment D, and supported by the findings in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward, second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Runtine?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the variance is approved. And at any rate, I do need to say that this decision we just made is appealable to the Board of Supervisors. And if anybody wishes to appeal it, they need to do it within 10 days. And it's $688 to complete the appeal. So you'll be clear in 10 days maybe, huh? Okay. Okay, so yeah, thank you for being here today and your participation. And so with this, we have to take a little break because our next item, which is Hidden Falls, is not due until 11:30. So we have about a 15-minute period of time here where we will be waiting for 11:30 and address the Hidden Falls item. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're back in action here. I see some recreation people that I've seen before. Welcome. Yeah. So at any rate, we're getting ready to hear the changes that are proposed for Hidden Falls Park. And so today we have Chris Graham, who's going to make the presentation, I guess.
Yes, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Chris Graham, Senior Planner with Planning Services Division. The item in front of you this morning is the Hidden Falls Regional Trails Expansion Project modification, proposed trail realignment, conditional use permit modification. The Parks Department will be carrying out the project implementation and design, while planning will be carrying out the entitlement process. And Park staff Lisa Carnahan and Andy Fisher is here joining us today. So Hidden Falls Regional Park, which I will be referring to as Hidden Falls, is the largest regional park in Placer County at 1,200 acres and is located regionally west of Highway 49 and northeast of Highway 193 in the Auburn area as shown here on the regional location map. This shows what is in the vicinity of the project. Shown in red here is a 140-acre parcel owned by the county, and the black hashed area is a 6.82 acre area that the county is intending to purchase by December 2023, both of which are proposed to be added to Hidden Falls and are the subject of this conditional use permit modification. The area is specifically located west of Bell Road, north of Mears Road, and east of Garden Bar Road, and consists of undeveloped natural land bisected by Raccoon Creek. As shown on the zoning map, the subject area is zoned farm, combining building site 160 acre minimum. The surrounding land has the same zoning designation with various building site minimum sizes ranging from 10 acres to 160 acres. Before moving on in the presentation, I did want to give a brief history of the Hidden Falls project. The 1,200 acre Hidden Falls Regional Park was first approved in 2009 under a conditional use permit. And an expansion to the park adding 2,765 acres was approved in 2021, requiring a conditional use permit modification. Today, we are simply talking about a minor expansion, adding 147 acres to Hidden Falls and realigning an approved trail through a conditional use permit modification. As stated, the proposal will add approximately 147 acres to Hidden Falls, proposes a 2.6-mile trail realignment to connect Hidden Falls to the Placer Land Trust Trail Network and Taylor Preserve, and proposes to eliminate the need to construct a 0.8-mile portion of trail and 2 bridge crossings of Raccoon Creek previously approved in 2021. Elimination of developing the 2 bridges avoids construction with riparian areas of Raccoon Creek and results in savings of public funds. Fire and emergency response would not be affected or degraded, as such public services would still be able to access the area via Nevada Irrigation District easements that partially overlap the proposed trails realignment and run just south of the proposed trails realignment, but north of Raccoon Creek. This shows a project site plan. The focus is to incorporate the 147 acres shown in yellow and orange here in Hidden Falls to allow for a trail realignment to be developed as shown by the green and white hash line in this area right here. This would allow the trail system in the existing 1,200 acre Hidden Falls to be connected to the existing trail system in the Taylor Preserve, which are both outlined in the black right there, and would eliminate the need to build the 0.8-mile trail and 2 bridges over Raccoon Creek that has yet to be constructed. These features are shown and labeled as the gray-white hash line on this figure. Visitors will access this area via the newly approved Twilight Ride parking area and existing Mears Drive parking area. No additional parking areas are proposed for this item. This figure shows a zoomed-in portion of the project site plan. Again, the yellow and orange area is the 147 acres proposed to be added to Hidden Falls. And the purple and red is the trail alignment that was approved in 2021, and the circled purple areas are the bridges over Raccoon Creek that were approved in 2021. The green outline is the 2.6 mile long trail alignment that will replace the trail alignment and 2 bridges shown in purple. It should be noted that the red trail alignment will be retained and constructed. I do want to point out that if the 6.82 acre area in orange is not purchased by the county, the proposed trail realignment will still be able to make connection between trail systems in Taylor Preserve and Hidden Falls, the areas shown in the lighter and darker shades of gray, respectively, on this figure. There were a couple questions from the commission regarding emergency service access to this area. So portions of the proposed trail realignment will overlap Nevada Irrigation District easements and will use 2 Nevada Irrigation District crossings, thus continuing to allow for fire and emergency service personnel access. The Nevada Irrigation District easement is generally shown as a light blue dashed dotted line on this figure. So this is actually, this area actually represents the actual creek itself, and the easement actually the canal, and the easement runs just to the south of the green alignment here. Unfortunately, we were not able to put together a composite overlay figure of the Nevada Irrigation District easement, as GIS data needs to be requested from Nevada Irrigation District, but we are currently working on that. And just to further note, emergency vehicles would be able to access the NID easements off of Ore Creek Lane, which is out in this area over here. To date, comprehensive environmental documentation has been completed for the Hidden Falls Regional Park, including a final environmental impact report and mitigation monitoring and reporting program approved in December 2009. And the Hidden Falls Regional Park Trails Expansion Project, final subsequent environmental impact report and mitigation monitoring and reporting program approved in March 2021. Similarly, the proposed trail realignment has undergone environmental review in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. It was determined that an addendum to the final subsequent environmental impact report was the appropriate document for environmental clearance. The county, as lead agency, prepared an addendum to evaluate the environmental resource categories in terms of any changed conditions, for example, changed circumstances, project changes, or new information of substantial importance that may result in environmental impacts different from those found in the previously certified final subsequent EIR. Staff concluded through preparation of the addendum that the proposed trail realignment reflects an overall reduction in impacts identified within the final subsequent EIR, that it is consistent with the final subsequent EIR, and that there are no project-specific significant effects which are peculiar to the proposed trail realignment, necessitating the need to prepare a subsequent EIR. Revisions in the addendum were limited to editorial revisions and clarifications of mitigation measures regarding biological resources and air quality. Public outreach was also conducted. Parks presented this item at the Hidden Falls Update Town Hall meeting on April 18th, 2023. And planning staff presented this item to the North Auburn MAC on May 5th, 2023 as an information item. At both public meetings, comments generally supportive of the proposed trails realignment was received. I will also note that since the legal notice went out for this project, that we have not received any correspondence from public. However, we did receive one correspondence letter from PG&E, which is an agency, and it was basically their form letter saying that the project would have no impacts on their facilities. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors to 1, adopt a resolution approving an addendum to the Certified Hidden Falls Regional Park Trails Expansion Project Final Subsequent Environmental Impact Report, prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopt amendments to the mitigation monitoring and reporting program supported by the findings in the staff report, and 2, approve the conditional use permit modification for the proposed Hidden Falls expansion and trails realignment, subject to the recommended conditions of approval and supported by findings in the staff report. That concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that commissioners may have. Park staff Lisa Carnahan and Andy Fisher are also here. Dave Bookout with CAL FIRE is also here. And Lee Chavez with Environmental Coordination Services is also in attendance if there's any questions about the CEQA process.
Okay. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Public disclosure, we've corresponded back and forth about this just on one question, but was this expansion area, the 147 acres, was this contemplated or considered or expected when the original Hidden Falls project went through?
I believe the answer to that is no, but I will let Parks go ahead and further, if there's anything on that.
Trying to get exact sequencing in my mind, but about the time that your commission was making the recommendation on the approval of the project was roughly the same time that we were in negotiations with the family that sold us that property.
Okay.
So it was not mature enough at the time of approval of the project to know whether the property would be purchased and what exactly we would do with it. But once it was in our hands, it was pretty obvious that we should take a look at the opportunity to eliminate the cost of the infrastructure of those bridges. So that's what we've been looking at since.
Okay. Yeah, I'm more focused on the procurement of the land. So this was a purchase? County bought this land?
Yes, so we own that property in fee, the county does.
And for the regional park as it stands now, is this the end of future procurement planned or expansion planned for this park?
It is the end of our planned expansion. I mean, I always qualify that because anybody can call us up any given day and say, you know, I have a piece of property, and we evaluate those calls when they come through. If it makes sense, we'll evaluate it. But we have no plans for future acquisition right now.
Okay. Well, I think that's important based on my limited understanding of CEQA, because we cannot piecemeal these projects together. That's why I asked originally if this was contemplated or considered when the original project went through.
Yeah.
So this is a new and independent procurement and was never really, or at least at the time, was not associated with the original project. And you do not anticipate additional projects right now for expansion, although they could conceivably occur, right?
Precisely.
Okay.
Okay, I have questions, I guess, unless somebody else does. No? Okay, the trail we're talking about, I think I read is 5 feet wide.
That's correct, yes. It will be.
Okay, and so that is not going to allow for fire trucks or vehicles to go use it, right?
Sure. So the point of the trails and the bridges, it was never to bring over large fire apparatus. For instance, like 50, 75,000 pound vehicles. One of the mitigation measures that was in the subsequent EIR did require that parks purchase a light rescue vehicle, which is basically it's a 550 chassis, which is basically a pickup truck. It will be equipped with fire suppression, initial fire suppression features, and will also have EMS, emergency medical services features that will allow that vehicle to access the NID easements and then be able to access the new trail realignment.
So if the new trail alignment is 5 feet wide, it's not going to accommodate a pickup truck, is it?
Go ahead and let.
Hi, Lisa Carnahan. No, it was never intended to. The trail system, just like the trail system within the existing Hidden Falls, the major road trail areas, North Legacy, those function as the area where the EMS could get into, and then they do have to hoof it from the major trail to get over to the minor trails. There was never any intent for the vehicles to be able to drive on the 5-foot trail.
Okay, so this is like a minor trail then?
It's a minor trail.
Okay,
You know, it's just a foot trail for, you know, hikers, bikers, equestrians. It's not a service road at all. The NID would serve as that conduit to get the EMS or fire in to that area, and then they would walk
okay,
from there to get to an injured party.
okay. And so, yeah, can we go back to the aerial photograph of this area? When I look at that, I see roads all over. The new parcel that was purchased by the county, and actually goes into neighboring parcels.
Correct.
And I guess, is that all NID
That's
stuff?
yeah, this is NID, this is the canal here, and then this is the road that goes over. So they would come in from Ore Creek Lane, they would come through up and around, and I believe that's where NID comes down, and then their road hooks around down here and comes this way.
And that's
So-
following the ditch line?
I'm sorry, yes,
Following the ditch line?
uh-huh,
And it goes into the neighboring parcels also, right?
correct.
Okay. So, and those roads are maintained so that the emergency vehicles can get on them, I guess, or the pickup truck emergency vehicle? Okay.
Yes,
So that. kinda
because
answers that.
NID takes their vehicles out there.
Okay. Then I see where the river makes a hook around, where it says, yeah, it makes a hook around.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a trail to the south of that, and there's a trail that comes down to the north of that. And there was going to be a bridge there. But is that going to be like a foot crossing of the, I guess what's going on with those two segments of trail that were at one
The-
time going to be?
The segment that would have come over here and hook through here and then come up to the, that's going away. That segment in there, that's the segment that's gonna be replaced with the trail that comes up and over this way.
Okay, so go back to the trail map. I guess maybe we can see it better there.
Oh,
Now you
So-
see where the big hook is in the creek in,
correct,
yeah. And you can see there's a red trail and a green trail that connect there, but the bridge is gone. Is that correct?
right, so it'll come this way and come up, yeah, this gray portion will be gone. I mean, it's never been built yet, it
Right.
just will not be built. The two bridges and this 0.8 mile segment will not be constructed, and instead, we'll keep it on the north side of Raccoon Creek.
Oh, okay, I see. So that'll be a loop trail, I guess, a little side loop trail, where you have the red and the
It's-
green running together.
Yeah, this won't be here, and yeah, this could, in the future, initially, we're gonna be constructing this component here,
Okay,
this connector.
and then the piece that goes down to,
This part,
yeah, that part and the red part there, those are gonna continue to be trails?
yes. Yeah, initially, we'll, like I said, we'll construct, so this is the Hidden Falls component, so this is where the existing trail, so it will connect to this existing trail, come over, and will come through the 6.82 acre portion, through the 140 acre portion, and connect up to the existing trails within Twilight, or the Taylor Preserve.
Okay, and those are all like 5-foot trails,
Yeah,
they're not road trails?
No.
Okay.
yep,
Okay,
just like these ones here are all
right.
the same thing.
Okay.
Natural surface trails.
Okay, well, I think that answers my questions. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Any more? Huh?
What you just went through.
Okay, good. And so, well, at any rate, I guess staff, we need to open it up for public comment in case there is some. So we'll invite you back after public comment if there is, and then you can make any closing comments you want to at that time. So is there any public comments? Anybody online? Huh? Okay, have you filled out a comment slip?
I have not.
Huh?
I have not. I know where the process is.
Okay, if you go over the table and fill out a comment and give it to the clerk, then we'll let you speak. Give it to the clerk here. Okay, so you can take the microphone now.
Thank you. My name is Norman Pettit. And I live on the parcel that is, if you have the pointer, or I can go up there and point it, oh, it's right here, sorry. This one?
The top one.
Top one, okay. So I live there. And as part of this initial expansion, I understand that these two parcels were acquired, these little gray ones from the family that owns these two parcels. And then what was negotiated through here was basically a right-of-way for the trail. I am just curious, I haven't seen anything in any of the public notifications or anything I've been able to read about the project, about the status of that right-of-way should this realignment be approved and move forward. I think after listening to the comments today, that it's going to be contingent upon the completion of this purchase, of course, I think, to make this happen. I don't have any input one way or the other. I think this is a good idea from environmental impact and clearly cost savings. But being the owner of that parcel, and I'm not asking you to make that decision. Maybe I'm putting this more out for the parks or the county various departments to consider.
And we can ask that question when we invite staff back.
Okay, when he returns?
Yeah.
Okay. That was really all of it. But from a public input perspective, I have no objection to the realignment whatsoever. It gets the public further away from my property.
Okay.
And so a little bit of selfish reasons there, but.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me see. And so we have another commenter.
Jim Hoggensmith, Newcastle. Just like to voice support for the proposed changes and appreciate the work that staff has done on this. Overall, it's a good addition, and I'll just add a little bit of history the way I remember it. You know, the county was looking for a way to tie the two major areas together, the Placer Land Trust piece and all the existing Hidden Falls Park, and they worked diligently many years ago to try to piece that together. And at the time, the Roars were not interested in selling that 140 acres, and so consequently, it was off the table. So it wasn't until the Roars, had a change of heart just a few years ago that it was even an option, and that's how it effectively became sort of an addition to the project that was unexpected by the county and by Placer Land Trust also, because the Land Trust had shown interest in that parcel too.
Right.
So
Okay, thank you.
that's where we're at with that, and there's nothing stopping the Land Trust or the county from having the public on the other side of the creek there at some point in the future. There's some pretty amazing flora and fauna in there that's much better diverse flora and fauna than there is anyplace else, because the cattle have never been on the south side of the creek in there. So it's a little bit better ecologically landscape than the rest of it.
Okay.
That's about it. And notably, the other thing to note, the trail alignment that's proposed is somewhat conceptual. It's up a little higher away from the canal, and so it has more separation off the canal than that.
Okay, thank you.
Background.
Okay, is that it? Okay, Cal Fire, well, we can invite you up if necessary. And so at any rate, at this time, if we don't have anybody online, and no more hands raising or needs in the public, so we'll invite staff back. We'll close the public hearing, invite staff back to, there's one particular question we need to answer, I think, if we can.
I could ask. I just wanted to address some of the questions particular to this piece of property. So we did, the county back in around 2010 to 13 purchased in fee these odd-shaped pieces south of the property that we just acquired here. So we do own these 3 in fee. This easement, the right-of-way that was just referred to on the gentleman's property, that's an easement. It's not real property. It's a 40-foot by 40-foot triangle that just closed that gap between the 2 properties that came together as a point. So if this is approved, we would retain that right-of-way. We would also retain these pieces of property. They would just have no entitlement to bring the gray trail and the bridges across them, but they would remain in county inventory.
Okay, and so that right away would continue?
Yeah, we have no reason really to dispose of it. It just would be there without an entitlement for a trail across it.
Okay, and so what are the limitations on the property owner there, any?
The limitations that we are kind of self-imposing with this project are just the elimination of the trail. If you're not familiar with Jim Hoggensmith, who just spoke, he's speaking as a citizen, but also a board member of the Placer Land Trust. Placer Land Trust owns these gray parcels here, the larger gray parcels, the Taylor Ranch, Cotomian Preserve up here. The Land Trust has their own rights on the property. They lead docent-led tours if they wanted to. They could wade across the creek and see the flora and fauna and things down here. We will not invite the public south of the creek now with this amendment. We did, with the purchase of this property, acquire a construction easement. These properties are accessed off Hubbard Road, so that still does leave emergency access opportunity. If that's a need, it wouldn't be us inviting the public down there, but if there's an emergency south of the creek, there still is emergency access potential there. I'll note as well, you noted the roads that were on the aerial photo that came through this property. We did acquire access rights through this adjacent property onto this property as well. So we do, we'll be able to improve that. We'll be able to have that. And I just want to be very clear, we never intend to bring the public in on those parcels. It's accessed through Big Hill, Country Club Estates. Never do we have plans to bring the public, but it does give us opportunity for maintenance, opportunity for emergency access, and to better improve those access options. I'd also wanted to mention, if you're a new property owner, we do have a list, a notification list of everything going forward, but if you've bought property and haven't gotten on that list, you can contact us, either see us afterwards or email parks@placer.ca.gov, and we will get you on that list so you get notifications of anything going forward. Make sure you're on it.
Okay, I guess just wanted to get clarification on the corner of the property where the gentleman spoke,
Yes.
where the county has an easement. So does that place some limitations on his use of that property, or what? Or not?
To my knowledge, well, it's fenced off right now. Part of the deal points for the acquisition of the easement was to put fence up there. But the only thing that the property owner cannot do is impede the use or potential use of a trail. So there's really very little that he can't do on that property.
Okay, and so if you're going to reactivate a trail in that area, then you'd have another process.
There would be a totally new process for that,
Okay.
assuming that this process finishes, which extinguishes the trail across that right away.
Okay,
Maybe just to further that line of thinking, so because this does require the or it does propose to remove the trail segment. If it were to be contemplated again, then it would need to come back through a another CUP modification to add that trail segment back
Okay.
in. So that would take it back before the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. And apparently there's a fence across it. Can you take the fence down?
We could talk, yeah.
You could talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he's here and he can talk to you if he wants, yeah. So, okay, I think that answers that question for you. You know, I see you have your hand up, but at any rate, I would suggest that you talk to the staff here after the meeting and get clarification. But apparently what I'm hearing is that that easement will still continue to exist. Okay. And so you can talk to him, you know, what that means to you as a property owner, okay? Yeah. Okay, I can't hear what you're saying, but I'm just giving you advice on how to deal with it. Okay. Okay. Well, I've closed the public hearing. Okay. Okay, with that, staff, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission.
I just have one question. This may be Clayton's more than anybody else's, but I'd like to understand how we do an addendum to an EIR on a parcel that's 147 acres that was not contemplated to be part of the original proposal and was not considered under the original EIR. How is it that we do an addendum to an EIR for a portion of this project which was never contemplated in the first place when the original proposal went through?
Yeah, so that's the exact purpose of an addendum, is to evaluate something that wasn't originally anticipated as part of the project. And then you look at the environmental impacts of the proposed change. In general, trails have a very small environmental impact. So, but staff did analyze that through the addendum and ultimately determined that there weren't any increases in environmental impacts based on the change of the trail from the proposed one. But EIRs themselves are not dependent on certain parcels. You're looking at the environmental impact. So the existence of a parcel being added doesn't necessarily, I guess, trigger some further extended environmental review beyond the actual review of the impacts caused by the action.
Okay.
Okay, any more comments or questions? Okay, I see your head shaking, so it looks like somebody could make a motion then, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I need the record.
Oh, yeah.
And just for reference, these are all recommendations to the Board of Supervisors.
I would like to make a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors to, one, adopt a resolution approving an addendum to the certified Hidden Falls Regional Park Trails Expansion Project final subsequent environmental impact report prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopt amendments to the mitigation monitoring and reporting program supported by the findings in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call.
I have a first from Commissioner DiMattei and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner Runtine?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second, I'd like to forward a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors to, number 2, approve the conditional use permit modification for the proposed HFRP expansion and trails realignment, subject to the recommended conditions of approval and supported by the findings in the staff report.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call.
I have a first from Commissioner DiMattei and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Runtine?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
can I ask a question relevant to that last item, how that's been disposed of?
we've already voted, you know.
Yeah, it has
Okay.
nothing to do with the vote. But there was a suggestion that the property owner with the easement have a conversation with staff. How would we learn? Is there a process that would allow us to learn what those discussions have led to or are leading to?
We could always report back if the direction is you want to know the status of the negotiations or discussions. Staff can report back at a future meeting.
Yeah, I really only want to know about the discussions, not the negotiation.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we'll hear more. Okay. And so with that, this is going to go to the Board of Supervisors for their ultimate decision. And so basically, we made our recommendation, and I think as far as business today, that does it for us. So thank you, folks.